oat milk. Just
Goat
like
milk?
I don't.
I make that all the time, Jordan. I
It's
love
so good.
matcha. I make matcha lattes at home with oat milk. I've gotten pretty good at it.
Oh, oat milk, not goat milk. Oh, I'm so excited about goats.
Goats are really cool.
I just think that goats are way cuter than oats.
They are.
Especially baby goats. When they get really excited and they start jumping around and like hopping and they run and they do the thing where they're like that cartoon do where their legs move really fast but they can't. Their legs are moving so fast that they're not touching the ground at the same time.
My
So they
rabbits
don't
do
move.
that a lot.
It's so cool.
Also, full disclosure, I may only like goats because my astrological sign is goat.
Goats are rad. You can make goats without it being an astrological thing.
Everyone loves goats.
We're online,
Yeah.
by the way. Just to let you know.
Goats are my favorite animal.
Thanks, Ryan.
You guys, I have to tell you something, which is, I feel like it was Jordan who said that thing about how you can only like Voyager or Deep Space Nine.
I don't think.
And I really,
Is there none of the above choice?
No,
well,
I
no,
just
but
said
it's like what she's saying. I don't. Yeah, I'm sure there's a none of the above choice, but it's like if
Are you about
love
to say you like Voyager?
No, I love Voyager. Everyone knows I love Voyager.
Are you team
But I'm
Voyager?
saying, Jordan made the assertion that you can only love one of two. You can't love both. And I was like, no way. And now I'm watching Deep Space Nine, and I feel like a stereotype because it is so hard for me to watch. But I'm gonna watch it anyway. And maybe by the end, now my new theory is if you, because so many people that say they hate Voyager, they don't watch, they just watch some of it and they can't stand it, so they turn it off. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna try to I'm gonna watch all of Deep Space Nine, and maybe by the end, I will feel differently about it. So right now, as of now, like 10 episodes in or something, Jordan is right, and I am a stereotype. But I refuse to let that make me stop watching it, and I'm going to cringingly keep watching it.
I remember
If I had to pick between the two, I would pick DS9 because Odo is more cool than how much I hate Neelix and that wretched doctor.
Ya bomba clot.
Honestly, the bromance between Odo and Quark is like makes Deep Space Nine for me. I love it.
Yeah.
So the problem I realized that I'm having at the outset is in Star Trek, my favorite characters are the Vulcans and the AIs, and this doesn't have either one, and that's really disturbing to me. And everyone's just like a fucking Ferengi or like whatever. It's just
Right.
Or
like
Kardashian.
Like, who cares about Bajorans?
It gets a lot better once Kira becomes bearable. I think.
Yeah.
I actually like her. She's like the one I like.
Oh man, she spends the first couple of seasons just being awful.
I like Kira.
She becomes a really good character, but at first she's just so hard to deal with.
I mean, like, I kind of like Quark, but it's like, if your favorite character in a cast is a fucking Ferengi, like, I don't know. That's not, like, very high, like, what's going on?
They develop him more. The show gets better. I totally know
But
what you
so
mean.
this is what I'm saying. Like, when I first started watching Voyager, I hated Neelix. And by the end of Voyager, I loved Neelix. And I reserve that possibility with Quark.
he's good. The whole
Anyway,
thing.
I just thought you guys should know that. And then I also wanted to do another unrelated thing, which is related to TV, which is that Kenny and I watched that Raised by Wolves show, and I wanted to see if any of you guys watched that.
Yeah.
And how you felt about it. Did you like
What is
it?
the premise? I'm unfamiliar.
I haven't seen it.
What is what is the
It's
show?
like it's a sci-fi. It's a Ridley Scott directed sci-fi show.
Wrigley Scott.
Weird.
Yeah.
That
He's the brother of the guy that directed Top Gun.
Is he related to the gum riggings?
And I highly enjoyed watching it.
You know, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
What is it about?
Humanity has destroyed itself with religion. So this atheist reprograms an android to raise 12 human embryos on a uninhabited planetoid, which turns out is kind of inhabited, maybe. But it's.
Is it about the founding of Rome?
I got more of a Garden of Eden feel from it.
I was just thinking because of Raised by Wolves.
I mean, that is definitely in there too.
Cool. My God.
It's funny you mentioned Garden of Eden, and I read an interview with Gene Wolfe this week, and the interviewer asked him a lot of typical questions. One of which was, "What tropes would you recommend that new science fiction writers avoid?" And Gene Wolfe, the first thing he said was, "The Garden of Eden metaphor." That's so overdone, and every science fiction writer has done it. You're not the first. Just pass.
Garden of Eden.
Garden of Eden.
I think stories like that could be told infinitely. I don't think you have to. There's always a new version.
Yeah.
When I was in undergrad at writing school.
Because, like, out of the 10 people who do the Garden of Eden, 2 of them are going to be pretty good. So he's probably like, you know, unless you know that you can do it, and if you know, he's probably like, don't even do it, and guys. Also, has Gene Wolfe not done the Garden of Eden? Like, come on.
I mean, he sort of does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Son.
Genesis and Eschaton or whatever.
Yeah, the end of Earth is very Eden-esque. Edenic.
I just have been waiting to bring those 2 topics up with you guys, so I just thought I'd get them out of the way so that it won't distract us in the actual book conversation.
So I watched the first 2 Raised with Wolves, and I was like, whatever. But it's like, it's good because I'll keep watching it if it's good.
I think it has
interesting
I
things
think
to
it has
say.
potential.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if there's another season.
I think it
want
already got picked up for a second season.
And they're also able to film.
I'm not sure, you know.
Yeah. I'm confused as to what is filming and what's not right now. I don't understand how things are filming, and I also feel like if something is filming, pretty soon it's not going to be because of the spike in cases.
Oh man, you really think that there's going to be a reaction? I feel like they're just going to ignore it as.
Things are already getting walked back.
I think people are going to die.
Yeah, I think so too, but I think that like we've been told pretty clearly not to expect any more financial help or shutdowns of any kind. I mean,
I think that maybe the government won't make us shut down, but I think that Disney will.
Are we going to get back into a situation with renegade governors who are like, "Fuck it, I'm shutting down," even though I'm being told not to?
Oh, definitely.
I think Biden specifically said that he's never going to shut down. So it will have to be on an individual basis, but I do think that that's going to happen. Like, I think restaurants already got walked back here to like 25%, which is still ridiculous, but like places are willing, some people are willing to do this, but you're right, no, it's not going to happen.
Kind of. In a weird way, it's good that we have a Republican governor because defying Biden will be like, he'll do it quicker. And when Biden says we're not shutting down, our Republican guy will be like, "Oh, I'm going to run against him." So
we can reverse psychology.
Yeah, but our Republican governor is also like he's positioned himself as an anti-Trump Republican. So he's been doing that with Trump to a degree, but also he knows that he governs in like a blue state. Like I think Hogan is acutely aware that I think Hogan probably is like more aligned with Biden than I don't think it's going to be. I don't think Hogan is the type of Republican governor where it's his brand is to like defy the Democrats. His brand, Hogan personally, his brand is to cooperate with the Democrats. Like his brand is like this bipartisan, like centrist garbage stuff.
Right.
Except for
Does
Like,
that change now, though? Now that we're not in the Trump environment, does that change?
No.
I mean, we may see over the course of our lives Hogan become a Democrat. You know, like I feel like he's sort of defining possibly like a direction for Democrats. Like,
I think what would be more accurate to say that Democrats are becoming Larry Hogan.
right, or something like that. But the reason I say that is because Republicans now are sort of going the direction of specifically Trump, right? I mean, they've seen that this is successful. That's not going to stop. Whoever they wheel out next time isn't going to be like a Hogan Democrat. It's going to be some other.
It's going to be
some weirdo.
I agree, and I as an extension of that, I think the most likely scenario is Hogan runs for the nomination in 2024 and just gets like killed because there's no appetite for that in the Republican Party. He's basically going to be the Republican version of what O'Malley did in 2016.
Yeah.
Like,
I think there's
everyone's
a
just going to be
loophole.
like, wah, wah.
There's a loophole in saying I'm not going to shut down because it's basically saying never going to give you up, never going to let you down, and that's a Rickroll.
Larry roll.
Thank you.
Okay.
How long have you been sitting on that one, Connor?
Just since we mentioned that Biden, just the first mention of Biden not shutting down in this episode, that's when I thought of that joke. So like 5 minutes. Hey everybody.
Anyway.
Oh, this is a really good chapter, chapter 10 of Nightside of the Long Sun. I feel like a lot of big, there's a lot of big moments. A lot of
now, are we
double
on
underlines.
the flame-tailed cat, or
Yes.
are we on?
We
Yeah,
indeed
okay.
are on the cat with the tin hot tail.
Yeah,
Red hot.
Red hot. That tail is red hot.
Red hot. Real hot tail.
We're going to the brothel to talk about red hot tail
yeah.
in chapter
Do you
10.
think Gene was aware of that joke?
He could not be. He writes about brothels in every iteration of the sun cycle, huh?
Whenever
Maybe
he gets
that
the chance.
You think Gene Wolfe goes to brothels?
Through sex work.
I bet he went when he was in the army.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, as a libertarian, I'm sure he believed that if you would like to pay for sex and somebody is willing to be paid for sex, then by God, you should be able to make that happen.
That's the backbone of the Libertarian Party.
Oh my God, you guys!
That might be the one place where libertarians and leftists come together.
Sex work rules.
Yeah, just sex.
That's where they agree.
Also, the legalization of drugs.
Yeah.
My dad informed me that he did not. My dad informed me that he did not vote to re-elect Trump,
That's
Ooh,
good.
what
but
did
that
he-
he voted instead libertarian, which is his MO usually. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, I didn't vote for Joe Biden, so I can't whatever. But then he told me, maybe sometime you can like do a little check out the Libertarian Party, and I was like, I've read about the I know about it. Thank
I
you.
know
Though.
what libertarianism is.
It was so funny. Like, what? I don't know. Whatever. We've had so many conversations about libertarianism in the last years. I just can't. It's so bizarre that he said that.
I think my dad is now. I've embarrassed him enough about being a Republican that he now is like, I'm really more of a libertarian. that's the route he's taking.
I could see
I mean,
myself.
my dad is a lifelong libertarian who, votes Republican because they're the closest thing or whatever.
I think we should start to think of anyone who leaves one of the major parties as being a decent person, no matter where they go.
Yeah, I mean, as misguided as I feel like a lot of the libertarian platforms, I'm at least glad that they're thinking critically about the two parties and stuff.
I mean, the two parties are so spoiled, and they need to have their their support checked drastically.
I think
Parties are for babies.
The only way forward at this point is for people who there just has to be divestment from the Democratic Party.
I don't wonder if there wasn't. I truly believe that there was we lived for those 8 years where people were insane about Obama and every day thought about how bad Obama was, and then we just lived through 4 years with the switch, and when it happened with Obama, it seemed like it made lifelong Republicans out of some people. They had concentrated their ire so. They had focused it so well, they identified as being the enemy of Obama that they're I'm Republican forever, even if being Republican means electing Trump and getting nothing that I want.
And honestly, before that, it was Clinton. I mean, there's always a super polarizing figure that cements that kind of.
And so maybe the Democrats think they do that with Trump, but they blew it. No one's a lifelong Democrat now about getting Trump out. I feel like a lot of people are as disappointed as they could imagine ever being with the Democrats.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about the cat.
They won't get the return on investment that the right got with Obama, is what I'm saying.
Now on to the true interest of our base, sex work.
The beginning of this chapter, I feel like, is a manifesto about punk.
Explain.
Do you think Gene had feelings about punk?
Something, I forget what it is now, but something in the New Sun, there was a point where, I guess it was when he was with Jolenta and Dr. Talos and Ballanders and they were a theater, where he's saying things that are how do you know these things without having ever been on tour with a band or a theater troupe? And then this chapter does the same thing to me, where I'm how can you explain what punk is when I don't think it's possible?
Can you point to the part that you're talking about?
Oh, yes.
What is the punk part?
Oh, yes.
Is this a punk house?
I've vested interest in this, so.
I can. It's when they are discussing the exorcism and financial remuneration for it. Because she's asking him about, she's comparing what he's about to do to the other people that have come and exorcised this brothel. And he asked if they charged, right? He says, Orchid asks if Blood is paying Silk to do it. And he says, no, I'm performing it as a favor. And then he goes on to explain, he says, did the other guys get paid? And then she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, no wonder their exorcisms failed. It's not to be wondered that their exorcisms are ineffectual. Exorcism is a sacred ceremony, and no such ceremony can be bought or sold. Seeing that she did not understand, he added, they cannot be sold. My statement is true in the most literal sense of its words, because once sold, the ceremony loses all its sacred character. What is sold is then no more than a profane mummery. That is not what we will carry out here today.
It's funny that you interpret that as punk, because I interpret it as Protestant.
I mean, that's there. In some ways, yeah, I think that no gods, no managers kind of vibe is there in both. I mean, obviously there are gods and managers in Protestant.
The thing that's not Protestant about it is that it hinges on the holiness of a ceremony, of a sacred ceremony. That part is not dethroned at all. And in fact, that part is what sets the value of, its enactment. He clarifies a little bit more a little later. I think I don't know if this will help or cloud the issue. The point upon which the efficacy of the ceremony turns is that there must be no bargain between us, and there is none.
Can't buy these indulgences.
So is Orchid the manager of Ram's Head Live, and Silk is coming by, and Silk is Amoebics or some crust punk band.
No. I think Orchid is any person who's just trying to make a living and live in this world. And Silk is an unreasonable force that steps in and says, yeah, well, if you want something to be holy, it cannot in any way have anything to do with these bargains we make all day in our regular life.
I definitely agree with you. I would just add that my reading was that Orchid was a particularly capitalist force. Like I don't see her as like kind of like just trying to get by, like just scraping by. I see her as like a ruthless capitalist. And the reason I think that is when she describes the whole situation where how she acquires these girls and how she met Pine or Orpine. Is she just walks around town looking for homeless girls, just like,
Ghislaine Maxwell!
Ghislaine Maxwell or the Tiger King dude, whatever that guy's name was, Joe Tiger or whatever the fuck.
Joe Tiger.
I've already forgotten what that guy's name is. But anyway, she like literally walks around looking for derelicts, and she's like, let me give you a hot meal and I'll give you a room, and the girls are like, really? I can't pay the first month's rent. And she's like, oh, it's no problem. You'll just whore yourself out for a month and it'll work itself out. And I mean, she's
a pimp.
Does that.
She's a real pimp.
Yeah.
But but there's something also very sympathetic about her situation the whole time.
She prides herself on that. Yeah. She prides herself on being the compassionate, like, pimp. She gives opportunities to her girls. She lets them leave, for example.
She brings somebody from here up to here, even though, it's not high. She doesn't lift them up out of their problems, but she gets them one step up.
How do we judge Orchid? Like, do we think that Orchid's a good person or a bad person?
Do we care? I don't.
I think she's a typical Wolfe character. I think Wolfe, portrays her as a complex being. I think we just laid it kind of out, right? Like, I think on one end she's a predator and she's making like a ton of money. Like, she can pay off 100 cards. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
That part of this chapter is so awesome.
Yeah.
When we watch with Silk as the number goes like we've never talked about more cards than like 20, I think, in the book so far. And then all of a sudden it went from 25 to 50 to 100. That part was viscerally exciting.
Yeah, it seemed like 2 cards was like a huge deal. Like in the first chapters.
Yeah, for almost 9 chapters, 2 cards was an amount that was like very, very special.
Yeah.
This is the point in which I can really identify with Silk.
I think Wolfe makes it really easy for even people, who don't have the same frame of reference to get excited about so much cards.
So I take this like passage we're talking about, or like Silk is like the value of something that you don't pay for. I took that as like a super interesting thing to be saying to someone who owns a brothel. Like, oh yeah, if you like sell this thing, it means nothing. It's not sacred anymore. But she doesn't give a fuck. She doesn't like believe that sex is sacred or should be. Like, it's just still being kind of a dork, in my opinion, of the most part here.
Is the brothel like kind of what Tim was saying about? The brothel is a sort of special example of capitalism at work. Is that maybe something that Wolfe definitely believes? Is that, like, I don't know, the complications that occur in the brothel and all the ways that, like, commerce and bodies and humans are interacting? Is it a particularly good place to talk about money ruling people's lives?
Yeah.
Is that why we keep coming back to brothels?
I think that Wolfe intentionally made it so that a character like Blood would be appropriating mansions in the world, and it seems like intentional that he's converting mansions into brothels, right? Like, it could have been any old building, right? But it's specifically the old spiritual houses or whatever the hell mansions were, back in the day that have by now been, in a sense, like in the way that Silk sees it, morally corrupted. But Silk, just like us and just like Wolf, doesn't really assign like a moral judgment to this to the women in their situations or to even sex work in general. Silk seems to think that it's the evil inside of this house, inside of this brothel, is the fact that these women could be doing so much more with their lives, right? Like that's how he sees it. It's not that he doesn't view sex as immoral. He doesn't have sex, but he sees it as not good.
Doesn't it also kind of seem like Silk doesn't crusade against anything with the intention or like expectation of destroying a like sin or a bad practice? Like Silk seems resigned that things like the brothel will always happen, and the appropriate response is to figure out how to deal with them and not how to end them.
Yeah, Silk isn't like a 90s era, like Tipper Gore kind of conservative, right? Like, he's not like on a campaign to get rid of brothels.
Yeah.
He just
now
doesn't
this all sounds much more Catholic.
God, that's all. It doesn't sound like there are these like moral worries in this world about sex work or anything like that. It just seems he's just like, oh, I want to see a God.
And I think there's not really an evangelical aspect to Silk's version of this religion. And I think that's like kind of where you get the big difference in this sort of like public moralizing, like you're
totally.
Yeah,
like
evangelicals.
Yeah, evangelicism is like really where you see that kind of intention in the religious, where they're trying to actually change the world. Now, I mean, the Catholics were evangelical to the point of being colonial, so you can't completely say that that's just a Protestant version. But I think Silk is not necessarily evangelical. I think he has some personal interest in helping some particular people, but he's not. I think as a whole, I think he's more like trying to lead by example kind of stuff.
I think that there's no evangelicalism because there's a monopoly. Like if the choices are you believe in this religion or you just kind of don't care, then you don't really need to convert people because they're not following a different religion.
Yeah. Do we know anything about this religion's? I mean, the afterlife is going to the mainframe, right?
Right.
So there exists some version of heaven, but is there a moral aspect to where you go in the mainframe?
That's a really good question. Because what is this religion supposed to represent? It's not Catholicism, right? It's sort of Roman multi-deism or whatever, right?
Yeah, polytheism has the underworld, not like heaven and hell.
Right.
But
But even the underworld has some better and worse components,
But that's kind of a later development. That's a like Virgil is where you start seeing that.
No.
Right, and that's Catholicism, right?
Yeah, like the only like humans don't go to Tartarus really. I mean, some humans get you got your Sisyphuses and your Tantaluses,
Right.
but they're heroes. Like
The ones who did the big
Joe Farmer isn't going to be famous enough to be punished. They're just going to become a shade.
Right. Are most folks in, and then there's Asphodel and which I feel, I mean, can read as like a purgatorian heaven style thing. I don't know when those developed though.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I guess basically we're just asking: is there a hell in this world? The world?
like is behavior and involvement in this
Right.
religion like is there a afterlife motivator?
Yes, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like Connor, maybe you would know, or Jordan, since, or I guess everyone's pretty much finished it except for me by this point. But I don't know if that gets brought up at some point in this series. But I think as of yet, it has not been, right?
Yeah, I don't really feel like
Yeah.
they had that.
Mm-mm.
It seems to me that punishment and reward is immediate in this world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that like if you're not going with the gods, then things suck for you now. Or if you're going with the gods, things are good for you now. You don't have to wait till you die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a much more polytheistic way of looking at things, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, this whole this conversation's really relevant, like how they view the afterlife, because in my mind, when I read this, I kind of read their religion as being a combination of like Greco-Roman polytheism and Catholicism, but it's really not. It's really more just like a polytheistic world, and that's why Silk isn't really moralizing about sex itself. That's not an idea that he has, right? That's not an idea that anybody has, and in fact, all of Viron is kind of this like it's kind of turned into this amoral cesspool. What we might, or what like a contemporary, I don't know, person who thinks that way might view as like a crumbling amoral city, right? Like it's like becoming just bars and brothels, and it's run down, and all the churches are getting rebuilt. Like, but that's a view that someone looking back at it would have. Like, it's in this moment right now where Silk is just discovering the outsider, right? Like the one god. And so in that way, this could be viewed as, you know, a transition point between two approaches to religion or spirituality.
Silk does say that.
So by talking about Raised by Wolves, in which the religious people are Mithraists, because that's from Zoroastrianism, which is the first time that you get the idea of deities that are absolute good and absolute evil. Yeah. Prior to Zoroastrianism, gods are just unfathomable,
mm-hmm.
and
like
scary.
In real life.
yeah, exactly. Like in real. They're not good, and they're not evil.
Yeah,
they're characters.
They're just big, and it's the Zoroastrians that come up with like, oh, evil is a god, and then good is a god, and you have, you know, you're picking between the two.
It's cool as shit when Pope Francis goes in on Manichaeans.
Would be if they never came in contact with Persia.
Mm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, also though, Silk does tell Orchid at one point the gods don't like a lot of things that happen in the brothel. There does seem to be some, I mean, the sense of like debauchery and licentiousness is happening there, and it's not good. It's not to be, you know, taken lightly or something from Silk's point of view.
Yeah, but doesn't he kind of explain that later?
Oh yeah. I mean, it could be the selling aspect and not have anything to do with the sex.
But he also says that like they don't like it, but they don't judge them or care, right? That it's like, oh, it's like this. It's like the idea of original sin. That he's saying like, he's not saying, oh, they don't like what you're doing. He says they don't like what I'm doing either. I think
he does say
like,
that.
They don't like what anyone does, but they accept it. It's cool because that's what they're gonna do.
Oh, there's that weird part where they're talking about homosexuality. Do you guys remember that part?
I remember when Orchid is like, if you want, I could get a boy instead, if that's more your speed. And he's like, no.
Oh yeah, here's I think the passage that Jordan was talking about. I don't think you do bad at all. Orchid, or I don't think you bad at all, Orchid, and neither do the gods. If they thought you bad, nothing that you could do would dismay them. They detest all the evil that you do and all that I do because they see in us the potential to do good. Where is this part where they're talking about gayness? Because that part's kind of it's weirdly cryptic to me. He's talking about how you can either see a god in the window or you can be blessed by the children of the body, but not both.
I remember that.
And then she's like, she thinks he's talking about having kids, I guess, and is like, the stuff you do with a boy is not going to get you pregnant. And he's like, I know what we're talking about. And then they leave it there, and I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, I think he's just saying, yeah, he's just saying,
And she's saying,
you can either see gods or you can have sex, and having sex like leads to kids, and the blessing that you get from having sex is having kids, and the blessing that you have from not having sex is like the possibility of a theophany or whatever. But you have to choose between the two. Is what I thought he was saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but to speak to Ryan's gay issue, I think that perhaps children of the flesh are people. You can enjoy people, or you can enjoy gods.
Ah.
I mean, I think that those both basically mean the same thing.
I'm having trouble finding this exact part because they talk so much.
In my book, it's on 195, but I don't know if you have the same.
No, I'm looking at it on a Kindle.
So it's
kind
like
of close to the beginning.
Yeah, it's like 4 pages into that chapter in my book.
Okay. Is it after the punk part? Yes, it is. It's right after that. Echidna forbids
It's also only Echidna that says you can't see gods if you screw.
Yeah, but she's got a lot. She's got a lot of power.
This is before Echidna becomes fallible.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really matter which god says it.
One may be blessed by children of the body. For a second, I thought maybe children of the body meant sperm, and she is.
I think he literally I think he means you can either see a god or you can have sex and have a kid.
Yeah.
That's what I think it means.
That's how he sees the issue. It's between childbearing and
she's like, I'm not talking about kids. I'm just talking about boning. And he's like,
Right.
I know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's funny because if we weren't talking about boning, it would kind of link back into this idea of commerce and bargains. That like, once you have a kid, and a lot of people online were making this argument recently. It's like once you have a kid, if you have to do things that are like unideal or even maybe bad, it's not on you. You got to take care of this kid. So like you can't have purity in that situation because it's always going to come down to a practical decision about your child.
People online were making this argument?
I feel like there were people who were saying like you can't expect everyone to be on a high horse and like look down on Biden or whatever because some people have kids and they have jobs to do, or you can't expect people to withdraw from society in whatever way because or be less invested in the system because they have kids they need to raise.
That's pretty much how it works.
Yeah, the survival of children trumps like any other consideration with respect to ideals at a certain point when you're arguing with breeders.
What I'm saying, this is the craziest fucking stupid crap I've ever heard in my life, but fine, whatever.
It's interesting that none of us have kids.
I don't think it's that interesting.
We wouldn't be here.
That's true.
I mean, I'm not saying it's illogical. I just think that if you take a sampling of people our age in the world,
Yeah.
it's unusual that none of us have kids.
We're all very deliberate about our actions.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's what distinguishes us.
I think it's more just the it's the art bubble. Like I feel like everyone I know gets married way later than the norm. Like not having kids or like buying a house or trying to settle into a career is not exactly like I don't know. I feel like our bubble is pretty
Daryl.
non-emblematic of.
There's a bunch of people in my bubble that just had kids.
Well, they're waiting until they're in their mid to late 30s, which is
40s.
not,
They're all in their 40s.
well, there you go. So
Yeah.
like the normal thing to do is have it like in your to mid to late 20s. Or
Yo,
whatever.
all their kids are gonna have face tattoos in like 8 years, and it'll be so interesting to see how our mid 40s friends are dealing with that.
I think the people who are having kids are counting on their kids having face tattoos with like their sword types.
Yeah, they're giving them face tattoos.
Yeah, get those face tattoos, get those followers and those subscribers, because you're paying for mommy's retirement.
It's funny because I have a friend who I guess he just turned 50, but he had kids. Is that right? Did he just turn 50? I don't know. He had kids pretty young, and they're like adults now, his kids. And he's like, I can't understand anyone. He's like, look, I mean, I missed my whole 20s or whatever, but like I'm done now. And people having kids now are insane. Like
Yeah.
that shit is exhausting. And like, I'm so glad it's over. Like that, he was just like, I don't know how anyone my age would be doing that. Like would have young kids. It doesn't make any sense. It's like a young people's game.
Of course.
And he's like,
all
and
of this-
now I'm still like, I'm not like that old, and I have like my life,
Yeah.
all of this though would be solved if we got rid of the idea of the family.
Yeah.
And you had kids and just everybody, the society raised them to be a part of society on their own,
Yeah.
which would make them a healthier person.
Yeah.
Good Lord, and everyone felt like they had a stake in everyone else being, happy and not acting out.
Well, and
Well, it would
people could
also
live
mean
for
that-
themselves and not live to please their parents.
It would also mean that actually all children would be valuable and not like,
Exactly.
and not just some people's children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would never have to get annoyed at somebody else's kids. If some child was misbehaving in public, you wouldn't have to just say, "Where's that kid's parents?" You could be like, "What the fuck are you doing, kid?"
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like with your family, at a certain point, you can't like expect the person to become a whole new person ever. And we have to. It would maybe be helpful to accept that about people that aren't in our family as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to fundamentally change that thing that they keep doing that they're fucked up about. So we have to learn how to deal with the future where they're going to be doing that fucked up thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking a lot last night. This Silk. Okay, I wrote down what I think the thesis of Silk is. And based on this chapter, on his internal dialogue, specifically right at the beginning when she's talking about the chair making the girls feel fat, and then Silk feels fat, like with the girls. And so I wrote down after that part that I feel like the thesis of Silk is to take religion seriously is to take everything seriously, especially other people. Like everything that happens, Silk wants to find a significance in it, and he's got this little rubric he can jump around to find multiple ones. And like the flip part of this is that I think the other part of this thesis is that you will look like an absolute fool from the outside. Like you will look foolish to everyone, but on the inside, like Silk's existence is like everything is full of meaning. He's always looking for it and finding it. And in a lot of ways, he gives it to other people once he finds it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I totally see how that makes life worth living, but I feel like there's a whole bunch of people who feel like who feel that's oppressive. All that meaning is oppressive. I feel like there's people who want life to have no meaning, and it makes it easier for them to live.
Like what? Like who? I'm curious.
Squares?
Well, I don't think.
Or maybe.
Let me backtrack a little bit. I don't think anybody would say, "I don't want life to have meaning," but
Right.
like, for instance, when I'm talking to my mother and I'm trying to have every single thing have a whole bunch of meaning because that's what I like to do, it exhausts and terrifies her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know? Like,
Well, isn't in a certain sense fantasies about space being lethal and so distant and we can never touch anything intelligent ever, and ideas about death leading immediately to a void and eradication of everything that you've ever known or experienced, aren't those in a weird way longings for nothing to mean anything?
Like what do you mean, Ryan? Like,
I mean,
I feel like a lot.
Isn't the theme of those stories nothing means anything?
I feel like a lot of sci-fi tends to become like kind of like mythical
I don't think
stories where meaning is there.
I think it's really hard to write a story where the idea is that everything is meaningless. If you're writing there's a story, the story is there, so there's a meaning.
Right, but these aren't stories that are like written with an intent of being stories. These are like ways we explain the universe to each other. So they have slightly different rules than like a narrative for entertainment.
I thought you were talking specifically about like science, if there was science fiction that does that. But
No, I'm talking about science fact that does it. That tells us it's a fact that there's void after death. It's a fact that there's void outside of this, like above the sky. There's nothing.
Yeah, I thought you meant science fiction too, but so you mean kind of like there's like a dark matter around us and like there's just nothing out there, and it's like we should never assume that there's life out there because we've seen no proof of it.
Yeah, the default mode of believing in the universe that you're supposed to believe in is this one that's like lethal, empty, indifferent to humans, cold, ageless, will die, everything dies, we're a small speck.
Atheistic.
Yeah. That's like asking
hard,
for there to be no
hard,
meaning.
hard atheism.
Hard science atheism. I feel like I don't know. It's so much. You have to make this assumption that you actually know everything that like everything you know right now is all there is to know.
Yeah. I think it fulfills the qualifications for when Connor says some people don't want anything to have meaning. I think it serves that purpose.
Well, I think it's very convenient to believe we have all the facts and now we can make the right decisions based on those. But
I have a question.
Ooh.
Because there's a lot of shifting going on in me because I just can't I don't need to. So I could potentially maybe be a person who doesn't want there to be meaning. So, but here's my question. So does belief in God, something like Mark just said made me think about this. Does belief in God, or if there existed God or some kind of higher power or some kind of spiritual force, does that necessarily mean that things mean something just because that thing exists? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
It would be okay. I mean, if we're having this thought experiment, Jordan, like let's say this God did exist, and it was a person who flew around or whatever and had magical powers, right? Like let's just follow this thought through. And they told you for a fact that if you were good throughout your life, according to these 10 rules, that you would spend all of eternity in heaven. Or that if you were bad and that you disobeyed those rules, after you died, you would go to hell. And this was not just a theory or an idea, but it was something they showed you proof of. They could produce proof that that's how this all functioned. Would then, in that situation, just to kind of add to the question you were asking to the whole group, would in this situation, would that give meaning to your daily life? Would that infuse? I don't have an answer, but
I think it would feel like I was being tested. I wouldn't necessarily feel like, oh, now there's a reason to be good. I would be like, oh, these people who like just have this power are lording it over my head and like forcing me to do something. It's so real life. If that really happened, I don't know, but like based on how I know I react to things, that's what I suspect.
I have no answer, but I have an opinion about that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Which is, and so this is definitely colored from my own experiences and beliefs, but I feel like such a strangely materialistic paradigm of a god, like, would make it so that everything inherently has no meaning. To me, just to me, I would argue from my standpoint that isn't a god. Like a physical thing that can prove. I mean, like God, the existence of a god requires faith, and requires that it is not a materially based thing. God is supernal. God is necessarily transcendent in order to God.
Yeah, because there's so much about life that isn't explained by the material explanations. There's still the material explanations can explain a lot, but there's still stuff left over, no matter how true they are. And then that's where you get into gods.
God is a verb, and when you and meaning is a verb too, or a gerund. So when you deny the verbness of reality and move it into an objective reality, a nounness, that's when meaning is kind of lost, I feel, or irrelevant. I feel, and I also completely reserve the right to change that opinion as I learn more over the course of my life.
Also, it's really hard for me to see meanings, whatever they are, and non-meaning as being opposed to each other. I feel like non-meaning is just one of the meanings.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's not an escape from meaning to say nothing means anything. It's just to have a meaning in which nothing means anything.
Well, that's like...
Although that is something that someone who has meaning would say. That's the trap of that, is like, for people that have meaning, not having meaning is a meaning because I exist in a framework of meaning. So there is potential that if we could step outside of having meaning, then non-meaning would mean nothing truly. But I can't tell because I'm so wrapped up in meaning. Sorry about sounding like a philosophy class. I know that sucks.
No, I like it. I like what you said. The thing is it's so clear and true that there's, that we're just left with it.
Right, and the fish knows that everything is water.
Right.
I like Silk because I feel like he's like kind of a special ed Sherlock Holmes for life. The mystery that he's trying to solve is like, what should I do? But he treats it like it's Sherlock Holmes' mystery.
Yeah, and he's an anomaly too. And I can kind of glean that from the way that Orchid interacts with him. Because I feel like Orchid is really just trying to get him into her fold. Like, she, at first at least, right? Like, she's like, I can do some favors for you. I can have you come in and see one of the girls. Now, why would Orchid do that? Is Orchid so grateful that he's coming by to perform the exorcism?
That's the way Orchid...
Maybe, but yeah.
That's the way Orchid operates and gains influences. Like, she even says, like, she offers him something and he's like, oh, that's nice of you. And she's like, I'm a nice person, ask anyone.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that is one way of operating in a power sense. It's like soft power or whatever.
Yeah.
Where
Absolutely.
you just like
And
make everyone like you and do everyone favors, and people leave you alone, or they help protect you, or they give you business or whatever.
And her giving them
So
free lays costs her nothing. She has to do
Exactly.
nothing.
Well, that's not true. She gets a cut of that, right?
Oh, no, but I'm saying that it's not like she has to give up something, like trade somebody something for their favor. She gives them something that's absolutely free to her. Like she gives them sex and then they give her like favors back. But
This is such an exciting conversation. So I instinctually agree with you, Ryan. However, a true capitalist would not see it that way. She's giving up profit.
it's time that they could be charging a John, you mean?
Exactly. If you're having free sex and I get money for this person having sex, your free sex is taking something away from me.
Oh, but no, she said that he can't come on the most popular night, though. He can only come on an off night. So it's something.
Yeah, it's downtime. It's maybe not.
I mean, it's like the thing where the coffee shop gives you the punch card and your 10th coffee's free. It's like they're going to get you to get the first 9 coffees by doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It is like, it's a mode within capitalism.
And if she has, like...
Oh, it's also a mode within sex. Why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? There it is.
Because the cow has genitals, the milk is just liquid? I mean, if you gotta have sex with one or the other.
This is not a philosophy that I believe. I'm not going to try to defend why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free.
Oh, hey,
Wait.
Joseph was in the comments and I just saw it. Is not wanting meaning the same as denying a universal meaning in order to create your own?
No. My instinct is to say no.
I think it helps you be free to do that, to make your own, but you might not have to necessarily believe that nothing is meaningful to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think that not wanting meaning to things. I got to think about this more. Never mind.
It really depends on where you're coming from. If you don't want your existing world to have meaning because you find it so abhorrent, then that will then leave you free to create your own meaning. If you don't want meaning to exist at all, no.
I think perhaps where we have a semantic difficulty here. This group shouldn't be identified as people who don't want there to be meaning. Rather, it's people who feel oppressed by meaning. Ooh. I also, as a person who is very into meaning, although there is probably an absolute meaning out there, I think it's vitally important that every single individual person realize that we have no access to that absolute meaning.
Yeah.
We can only know personal meanings. We can try to have our personal meanings approach absolute meaning, but as Einstein proved, we have no access to absolute as finite beings.
Yeah, I like that. I'm into that.
And the
Booyakasha.
private meaning to approach absolute meaning is through empathy and love. Marianne Williamson for president.
Yeah, this book was making me think last night about how we're at this moment where everyone is going to double down on how little they care about the future of their foe. Nobody. We're at this point where you got to celebrate and get it all out about how much it sucked that those people were getting away with what they were getting away with, and it's you know, you can only do that if you don't think about what comes next for them. And that as long as we keep doing that, there's like no change. The only way to change is this insanely scary thing of having to care about what happens next for them.
I got it. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like we have to think about what happens next after the bad people are defeated. We can't just like
I kind
write
of
them
want to
off.
expand upon that. In that I think that it also denies the past. You know,
How they
like-
got there?
Exactly.
How they got to
and
be bad
and how what we do played a part in how they got there. You know,
Absolutely.
like it is completely atemporal.
Well, it's
now
funny,
is the only thing that
everyone's so obsessed with Nazis, but no one like seems to ever bring up how did that happen? How did that start? And
Right.
it started with humiliation.
and punishment.
Humiliation and punishment, yeah. It never would have happened if there hadn't have been like a very extreme effort to humiliate and punish these one people.
And
We
another
didn't even
aspect,
start.
another aspect to Nazis is that when you think of a Nazi, you think of like a soldier, right, at like a base with a gun, and he's got a dog on a leash and a
skull on his
swastika helmet. But what people forget is that a whole country of regular ass people, right, sat by and silently approved. You know, like, and outside of that, whole other countries were like, that's kind of fucked up, but like not really our problem for like a really long time. And like that was just
This country
because
especially.
it was normalized and powerful people were doing it.
Well, this
Yeah.
is like a big problem that I always have as like the resident anti-Zionist in my fucking Jewish family. Is like, okay, because as Jews we're like obsessed with the Holocaust, which makes
Yeah.
sense to be obsessed with the Holocaust. But the problem is, it never gets. It's like, okay, but what is the purpose of obsessively remembering the Holocaust? The
Right.
purpose of that is to make that shit not happen again.
Right.
But like that step is never fucking taken. Or if it is, it's like you get upset because like something like some terrorist thing happened in a synagogue. But it's like, no, this is about fucking everybody. Like you can't be bulldozing people's fucking houses
Yeah.
in Palestine. Like that's not okay. You know, like it's never like
Yeah.
just never taken to its logical conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in America. It exists functionally in like our collective mythology is just the time when the United States stepped in and
Kicked
saved
ass.
like a fucked up situation. You know, like we did it. Like that's why it's taught in schools. You know, like we don't focus on the fucking chattel slave trade. You know, like as much as we should. In which arguably many more people were oppressed and murdered,
Or the
you
Native
know?
American genocide. You know, like,
But we also don't focus on how the idea that we stepped in and saved World War II is completely untrue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
Russia
Russia
won World War
won
II
World
while
War
we
II.
did war crimes on Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the
paid
story
the
of World War
Nazis.
II.
Or like right after that, we killed like what was it, like 10% of the Korean population?
Yeah.
Like a massive, massive chunk of like somebody from basically like somebody from everyone's family died in that one.
The Nazis have been like our ticket to do all this stuff because
Yeah.
that's what bad looks like. We are clearly not that.
yeah, we're Captain America punching Hitler.
Yeah.
And it's also an
Yeah.
interesting thing because the aftermath of World War II, the only reason we're able to think that we won, or actually the actual way that we won, is that the war happened everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So we were the ones that had resources.
Yeah, we suffered the least.
In that way, we won World War II.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, yeah, not because we're good. We didn't win because we're good, and we didn't win by doing good, and we didn't win the ability to be good. We won because we saved our money, and we won because now we have a whole bunch of money to spend.
Oh man,
I drink your milkshake.
I forgot I wanted to open the stream by formally acknowledging that fascism had been defeated forever in the results of our election.
Oh yeah,
And
I was gonna say, aren't you guys so glad that as a group we all so emphatically endorsed Joe Biden?
Well, I just got to say, I'm so glad for that electoral college. That is a really wise system, and it showed its use here. It helped us do the right thing, and I think we should keep it around for 1,000 more years.
Truly democratic institution.
Yep.
And now this is great because now we don't have to worry about the government doing bad things, and that was really stressful for me.
That's true.
Well, now we can all go back to brunch. That's what they say.
Yeah, yeah.
COVID is over. Right. We can go back to brunch and say, "Where's that waiter?"
I've definitely firmly cemented my place as a hard anti-bruncher. We're never going back to brunch.
It is unfortunate.
Brunch is over
because I like all the foods at brunch, and I like that time to eat.
What?
I also
I like
portmanteaus.
Brunch. I like all that food. I like eating at that time. It's too bad that the meaning of brunch has become this.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. The thing that is meant by brunch is not you eating eggs at that time in your own home. The meaning of brunch is going out and paying $40 for some eggs and yelling at the waiter.
Yeah.
And clinking mimosas with your BFFs because Trump's out of here, and everyone who supports him is out of here.
Miss my BFFs.
There was like a party on Howard Street where it was all these like middle-aged ladies dancing in the street with Biden shirts on, and Kenny and I were at the red light, and we had the windows down, and they were like, "Hey!" and Kenny just went like this. And they were like, and she was so mad about it. She was like, "We're looking for some support," and I just like stayed silent. But I realized, like,
buy a bra, bitch.
I was one of those classic moments where, like, 1 minute later, after you leave the red light, you realize the perfect thing to say, which I realized in hindsight would have been, "How's the Senate?"
Yeah.
Hey, the jerk store called.
They're running out of you. The jerk store called. They're running out of you.
Could have drove back and yelled that out.
It's so silly. I mean, I do relish the idea of Trump being upset by something. I reserve the right to enjoy that as a thing.
I haven't watched that press conference at the hardware store, but I've heard that it is a pretty good dose of Schadenfreude.
What?
I haven't watched it.
Oh yeah, what is it? The Four Seasons. The Four Seasons landscaping or something.
I swear to God, that's like an Arrested Development joke. Like
totally.
Maybe it was intentional. Maybe they really wanted to have it at like a blue collar kind of,
But why
locale.
What are we talking about? I don't know what's going on.
Oh, you don't know
I gotta pee.
Oh, Connor, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
This is fun.
My sister sent me this thing. My sister sent me this thing where one person asked, "Is there a German word for tentative relief without joy?" And then the person responded, "Bidenfreude."
That's good. I like that. That's pretty good. Yeah, my official stance on the election is that if Trump doesn't pull some like barricading himself in the White House, I'm gonna be angry. Like I'm like looking forward to him trying.
Yeah.
To keep his. Like I don't know. Like,
It's the next season, right?
yeah.
I will also say, my sister texted me yesterday when this whole thing went down that basically she's mad at me because I robbed her of her feeling of relief that she could have had. She said like basically that I blackpilled her or something. But she said, I'm surprised at how unrelieved I feel. I hate you. You did this.
It's for her own good.
She said, I would have been happy before just to get Trump out, but I'm so scared of liberals now.
Nice.
You know,
Relief is for the dead.
She's going to thank you in like 6 months.
And then she said, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding, you know. I mean, not about being scared of liberals. That's 100%.
Oh, I hate them.
I hate them so much, yeah.
So bad.
My sister lives in Germany.
Full disclosure.
I think I probably mentioned to you guys before about how she was like, there was a period where she was sort of softly trying to convince me that I should vote for Joe Biden, and she was like, come on, like, it's about how the world looks at America, you know? And I was like, we deserve to be seen as Trump, like that. We do not deserve something better than that. Like, we deserve to be looked at in the eyes of the world as a total joke.
I was really
cut it at this point.
What'd you say, Jordan?
Joe Biden, he's not going to cut it at this point for that. We're going to need a little more to get back in the good graces of the rest of the world.
We're going to have to become a not failing country, I think. Like, we're a failing country. We're a failed state, you know? Like, there's nothing you can, like, you can't, like, you're putting lipstick on a pig at this point.
I was kind of shocked at how the cool British musicians in my Twitter timeline were, like, really seemingly, like, very naively excited about Joe Biden. And I kind of just, I got to assume, like, the shit in their country is going real bad, and they, like, are projecting something out on us. Like,
well, that's, I definitely think, I mean, Trump presaged Johnson over there, and if they, I don't know, I can see them
Brexit
feeling like maybe
Trump.
finally they can get a Labor victory.
man,
Yeah.
it's weird to see them go
Say
Joe.
again, Brexit presaged Trump.
Motherfucker gonna invent trip hop and then be like, Biden, that rocks my world a little bit.
Was Tricky excited?
No, Jeff Barrow from Portishead, but
Oh, okay.
you know, same.
Maybe once you get a certain amount of money, you get excited about Joe Biden. You know,
I mean, these guys are British, so it's like, it's a whole different. I can't even, I feel like, begin to try to understand how they're getting to the point where they're excited about Joe
yeah,
Biden.
but England and the United States are like so intertwined, though. You know, like they care about that shit. Like I wanted Jeremy Corbyn to win real hard. You know, like I was invested in that race, even though it wouldn't mean much for me personally.
It sounded annoying the way that went down. I mean, they
Yeah.
You would like to see it. You want to see it. You want to see it happen all over the world for, like, decent people to be elected. Because, you know what, the truth is there are no good countries. Maybe there are some, and I would like to know about them if you know about them. But, yeah, it's looking pretty bleak. Pretty much everywhere. And it is America's fault, among probably England, too.
well, why did everyone follow us? I mean, I guess we had guns pointed at their heads, but still.
Because we have fucking blue jeans and
Talking about
Elvis,
right now?
We're cool. We have leather jackets. We have sunglasses. We're
We
fucking
got
awesome.
rat.
Marvel
Yeah,
For the
superheroes.
concept of
Yeah,
countries.
baby, we rule. We're so
No.
cool.
No, that we led the way as far as way of life. You know, that everyone followed us and said that's the way of life of the future is the way the Americans live.
Well, it was,
I don't think we invented doing that. We took it over from other people.
yeah.
We put our own Yankee spin on it.
Yeah, we put our own spin on what England was doing.
Sure, and England put a spin on what France was doing, and France put a spin on what Rome was doing, and so on and so on.
genes.
It's not just America that's bad. It's the whole concept of nations.
Yeah, for sure.
We can't have groups of more than 200 people.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not good at it.
People need to be directly involved in their own survival to a much greater extent than they are right now, because you know what, it's not good for the mind to be so disconnected from life.
It sounds like you're encroaching upon a definition for meaning.
It is exactly what I was feeling like when I started saying those words. I said, "Oh, I know where we are."
No.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to talk about Wolf, but also like I just feel so. There's all those people outside of my house and of this small group of boxes, and I'm so terrified of all of them.
That's interesting.
They exhibit the worst judgment. I'm terrified of all of probably all but about 10 or 12 people.
Why do you think you're reacting with terror?
Totally.
Because it's just like they continually overshoot my or undershoot my expectations, which I try to keep like very, very low. But they find really creative new ways to make me scared.
Horrifying.
Yeah. To do things where I'm like, oh my God, we're here and this is a thing. Oh, and you're okay. You know, like I mean, this is also a function of approaching whatever age, but seeing people who have been rebels their whole life that are like, yeah, waving the flag right now. That always scares me to see people that I've known for like 2 decades as anti-authority being.
Well, you know what happened. Well, you know what happened to the hippies. And they weren't made extinct by like a meteor.
Yeah, guys, I hate to break it to you, but a lot of our friends are going to get pretty libby, if not now. Like really soon, especially the ones with kids, they're going to get very.
I've been shocked by how many already are.
Absolutely. They're going to do that thing that if anyone moves away at all in any direction from the Democratic Party, that means you're going right. That is, I feel like the next year we have that hanging over our heads where people are going to tell us we're moving right because we are like skeptical about the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's a really interesting phenomenon.
I'm just not afraid of it.
I know, but it's annoying.
Terror isn't my reaction. I don't even know what my reaction. I guess I'm just excited about everything. When things go poorly, I'm excited about dealing with that. And when things go well, I'm excited about dealing with that. Like, I will support the things that seem good to me, and I will work against the things that seem bad to me. But I'm excited about both of those prospects. I don't know, and maybe this is because this is my egotism here. Like, I don't. I mean, things are going to be bad. I'm going to suffer. So I'm not afraid that I'm going to suffer because I know that I will. You know, and maybe this is a nihilist thing. I don't think that it's possible for the thing that I want to ever happen. So, like, good will never be good enough. So bad is never that bad.
Well, I don't think that's
it's all just shit you got to deal with.
Pessimism. I don't think that's
nihilism. Okay.
Pessimism.
Also, I think
I'm not upset about it.
There's
I'm excited about dealing with it.
You can still have a pessimist viewpoint and feel good.
Perhaps. Like, I was talking to Anne recently, and somehow we got to a thing where she was like, but isn't the point of life to alleviate suffering? And I was like, oh, no, I think the point of life is to suffer with grace.
The screen just did an amazing thing when you touched your forehead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the light changed and you were glowing while you touched your forehead. Did anyone else see that?
No.
I didn't.
Well, you.
I have revealed myself unto thee.
Feed's over. Oh, I feel like when we say horrified and terrified, it's a heavy part of that is cringe. It's like, how am I going to speak to people when our frames of reference are clearly so like far apart?
Ooh, loudly and forcefully.
We just have my approach to that in daily life, because for me, and I think probably for all of us, if you're real about it, that's always been true. I just try to take every conversation at face value and every conversation where it's at. And I just try to I just don't bullshit about it. And I just try to I don't know. That's my approach, is I just take each conversation as its own thing and try to suss out what's happening and the dynamics of each conversation. But I am also very much not I'm not very online, so when I say that, I'm talking about a conversation I'm having with a human being.
Yeah, with real people. When you're talking to real people.
Yeah, the IRL.
See, I find myself, unfortunately, Jen, that's what I strive for, what you're just describing, but I often find myself actually serving as sort of a double agent in the real world a lot of times, and just sort of holding my tongue and being yeah, and just listening and sort of disengaging from group conversations, because I have a hard time relating to a lot of people in the world, but what am I going to do? Am I going to be you're all, you guys are not understanding things. It's very, ideally you would participate and provide your point of view. But if you do that consistently enough, people just get pissed off at you,
Well, it depends on how you do it, too.
It does, totally.
And you're not going to be successful every time.
No,
but
you should never
be successful,
It's harder.
You should not look at somebody thinking that you're going to be successful in anything. You shouldn't.
Right.
You should never try. I think what it is, so maybe me and Jen's fathers might be kind of similar, because my dad's conservative, but he's the kind of conservative that's these Republicans are not real Republicans, conservative.
Right.
And he's I think it's if you grow up with a conservative family, but you're also not a liberal, I think that's the key. I think that's how you learn how to talk to people who in that way, where you're yeah, what you're saying is insane, but I'll actually talk to you about it, kind of.
Not if you're from the South.
Okay,
that's me.
That makes sense.
I have a theory.
I like Jen Kirby because I think that's just kind of a function of being Jen Kirby.
Yeah.
It'd be confrontational.
Yeah, I know.
But you're good at it, Jen. I admire that.
I'm not against it. I think it's great, but it's also an anomaly in people from the South, I feel like.
Well, I'm also
he's also from the East Coast.
I'm also a Jew from the South, which is its own category.
I'm sure that.
You're like David Cross.
I'm working on a theory of empathic argument that I constantly fail at myself, but I'd love to present it to the group and see what y'all think. That the way to talk to these people is instead of trying to argue against them, you should try to argue their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Try to prove them right.
Yeah.
And as that falls apart, it'll fall apart together for you.
Just ask them questions about what they're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Should always be questions.
Try to assume that they're right, and then find the places where they're problems. And instead of being what are you going to say about this? Be oh no, but what about this thing? How are we going to justify this? And then
yeah. I often end up operating like that, where I'm okay, so what you're saying is that if we get Biden in first, we can kind of push him, in the right direction, and that kind of thing. And I'll be all right, okay, but on the other hand, we can see from this
I'm
evidence,
glad we're
but kind
having
of
this talk.
meeting someone where they are.
I feel like I'm getting better mentally prepared to deal with people at my work now.
Yeah.
I guess my
Where's your
strategy.
work?
Oh, at the I'm back at the School for the Arts. Although there's no
congratulations!
Oh yeah, thanks. There's no students there. It's just staff, so it's very strange.
So the teachers are drawing you.
No, the
Are you
kids.
basically a webcam model now?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's ridiculous. But the idea is that I shouldn't be punished because of COVID, and we should probably have some hope that it's not that far in the future. The kids will be back, and my job will make sense again. But I have been a little worried about what happens if someone comes up and tries to start talking to me about Biden or whatever. Like, I guess after having just listened to what everyone said, my plan is going to be like, I don't know what to think. Please help me.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Like, tell me what to believe, and then maybe if there's something funny about it, I'll Columbo you a little tiny bit. But like, otherwise, I'm going to pretend that I need everyone's help in understanding what's going on with politics.
Columbo is a perfect avatar for this.
For sure, absolutely.
That's like a thing that Kenny does for comedic effect, and also I think like the real huge hero of this technique is Nick Visonsky. where you just go into a conversation pretending like you don't know what the person's talking about, even if you do, and you just make them explain it.
Yeah.
It's Socratic, really.
Giving them enough rope to hang.
Yeah, it is pretty Socratic. I think that's the whole, like, Socrates is the guy alive, right?
Well, I mean, this all ties back into our conversation about Connor, your idea that people, fear or resist meaning, which I think in some ways may mean knowledge when we talk about meaning, right? And that
Say again, Tim?
Oh, sorry. This kind of ties back to your idea about how some people resist meaning or knowledge in their lives, and because oftentimes when we are having conversations with people, maybe about politics or big ideas or whatever, and they have their firm ideas about it, and they're also talking back with us, we're conversing. I would, if anyone here identifies, I oftentimes just feel like people don't have as much perspective as me, and maybe that makes me sound like an asshole. I'm really afraid of that, but I put a lot of time into reading and thinking, that other people put into, like, I don't know,
shitting and pissing.
But so a lot of times when I'm having conversations with people, I feel like they're on like a line. And so what do? Then you ask them to explain. Then you ask them to talk about their, what they understand. Like, meet them. It's just hard sometimes. I don't know. It's terrific.
Amen.
Underneath all, it's just relevant things to be talking about, and I really appreciate this group right now because this is a hard conversation to have. With a lot.
Well, nuance has been lost. It's like, if you hate Trump, you have to love Biden. There's no room for anything between that.
Isn't that kind of like what we always meant when we were talking about rape culture?
What?
Like,
Explain that.
Like, we've got two guys, both with, like, accusations and some level of, like, videotape proof on either side of them being rapey. If not rapists, at least rapey, I think would be an uncontroversial way to describe videos of both and comments by both people. But we have not talked about that, and it won't get talked about. And that, to me, that's a rape culture. You had two choices, totally. And you had to be happy with one of the rapists and like it. And if you don't like it, if you don't like what he does, it's a secret because Daddy has an important job and he helps people. He helps people that are not well off. And you will be taking food out of their mouth if you tell on Daddy for molesting you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this also dances around a conversation I was having with Corey Schuler when he was aghast that I was voting for Hillary.
You voted for Hillary this time?
No,
You wrote her in?
this was back in 2016 when we could still talk to people that we don't see every day. But I had to explain to him, like, I don't like any president. I can vote for Hillary Clinton because anybody who is going to be president is bad. I can vote for her and still talk shit about her. If I were to vote for Trump, I would talk shit about Trump. There's no president that I won't hate because they are president.
Yeah.
You know, like, even if I vote for it, even Bernie Sanders, I have problems with Bernie Sanders. I want him to be president, and I want to then identify what my problems with him is. And it goes back to the idea that, like, we can't touch the absolute. Nobody is absolute anything.
Well, the issue is with that kind of thing. The issue is that, and the reason that, like, we would want Bernie to be the president is because he, unlike everyone else, is the only one who's demonstrated any kind of flexibility and any kind of, like, accountability to his voting base. Like, the thing about Joe Biden is he has only shown that he can be moved to the right on issues. You know, he spent, like, the last month just, like, trying to prove how much he loves fracking.
Oh, fracking God.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not, like,
Bernie's still the best choice. I'm not trying to impugn Bernie. I'm just saying there's still problems with him. Like, there's no one that I'm not going to have problems with.
Yeah,
and I'm always
totally.
going to talk about this.
I'm just saying that was the one thing that set him apart, was that you actually had a chance in hell that, like, he could be moved.
Which is why all of his colleagues and all of the media did everything they can at every step to make him seem irrelevant and impossible to win.
Yeah.
No matter what happened, that was always... He wasn't even worth getting upset over because he was nothing.
Yep.
Which is a problem with him, frankly. I mean, also Bernie Sanders didn't become president because of problems with him. He wouldn't go against Joe Biden. You know,
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think
he
was an extremely flawed candidate.
He was.
I'm just saying that
flawed.
I think he was an extremely flawed candidate. Somebody's speaker is, like, echoing. Are you guys having that?
Yeah.
Are you guys hearing that?
Yeah, that's King Tubby. And scientists.
But I know it's not me because it's echoing when I'm talking someone else's speaker.
I get echoes when everybody's talking.
I have a suspicion of who it is, but I don't want to say it.
We can turn down our volume one at a time.
There's got to be one person who,
One person.
when they talk, their voice is not echoing to them, and that's whose speaker is problematic, if that makes sense.
It's somebody whose microphone and speaker are close to each other. That's how we get that that thing, right?
Yes.
That feedback.
Yeah.
Mic and
I'm not
speaker.
hearing it
close.
now.
I just turned mine down a little bit. Maybe that
It
helps.
sounds better. Whatever happened, it sounds better now. But I've been finding that very distracting.
I wear headphones when we do this.
There are other apps that handle this stuff better. Maybe someday we'll use one.
Headphones.
Well, I use an external speaker, and I put it away from my computer so that this kind of thing doesn't happen.
External
That's
speaker.
my personal
Headphones.
solution.
Well, it's probably me because I own neither headphones or external speakers.
But it also can happen if you have, like, a laptop and the mic is, like, underneath, kind of, and then you have it on a surface that's too close to it.
I'm using a laptop that I've never used before, so
Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. I just thought I'd bring it up in case it was an easily solved problem. But if it's not a deal breaker.
Deal breaker.
Ooh. Some of the stuff I underlined in this chapter doesn't seem all that important anymore. Oh, except I guess there's a big thing is, what is the role of Mucor in the death of Orpine?
Yeah.
What role does Mucor play here?
Well, Mucor is inside Orpine.
Mucor just is the devil that's making the girls in this place rip up their clothes and shriek and stuff, yeah? It's just Mucor fucking with her dad.
Yeah.
So okay, I guess we're at a point where the distance between my first read and now is really showing, but Did Mucor go in her body and make her stab herself?
I don't think so. I think
No, Chenille killed Orpine.
Yeah, Chenille stabs Orphan.
Because Chenille sees Orpine coming down the stairs and sees Mucor's face, and she gets freaked out and stabs her.
Okay, phew. All right,
Yeah.
wonderful.
And
now
Chenille is on rust too, so she might have been acting a little bit more violent than.
Yeah, Chenille's
Usual.
all tweaked out. She sees Orpine with Mucor's face or whatever.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh my god. Okay. I was like teetering on the edge if I feel like grasping the extent of Mucor's role. I knew she was here.
It's still a little odd. I don't personally understand what Mucor's angle is here. I guess she's following Silk everywhere, and so when Silk goes in there, she jumps into Orpine at the precise moment that Chenille is walking down the steps and sees her and stabs her. But it doesn't seem like it was malicious on Mucor's part.
But she's also, it's not the first time Mucor's been there.
Yeah. Mucor's been.
Oh.
She likes fucking with that place.
Mucor's okay. It's Mucor. Is the devil?
Yeah, because
Okay.
there is a part where they make a big deal about the screen. That's like the screens being there, and we've got the contorted face. There's like a real quick throwaway line about her. He found her oddly contorted face at once horrible and familiar. Contorted faces mean Mucor is around.
Yeah, and familiar because you've seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mucor is the one who's been fucking around with this place recently.
She's basically like a poltergeist in there, but she's coming through a TV screen. Which I guess is very poltergeisty, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly the plot of Poltergeist.
Yeah. Which is interesting, and that's what I've been thinking about a lot the last week is the significance of these screens. But that's a huge thing we'll continue to talk about.
In this chapter, when they go into the room, Silk is like, "Is that screen listening to us?" And Orchid's like, "Nah, it doesn't do anything." And he's like, "I don't think they need to look like they're listening to listen," which is what the moment we're having with our own devices right now.
Very prescient. Yeah. I feel like what Wolfe did really well with this is that he kept it real general. He kept the technology really open. And that's really smart because it's still relevant today. Whereas if it was like he like sat down and like had knobs and levers and stuff like in Star Trek, like he knows that 15 years later that's going to be irrelevant. And that it's not going to resonate as a technological metaphor. And so he keeps it so vague. It's a glass or screen.
Archetypal, even.
Yeah.
It's like the archetype of technology, the archetype of communication.
Yeah, and he figured that out, and because that's television and computer, and I feel like Wolfe may have been thinking television, right? Because the metaphor kind of works. If we're in a society that has no real true God anymore, right? They would perhaps look for God in a television. Which might be a metaphor for people in the 1990s
or the 1950s.
Right.
Or I mean Netflix and Amazon and all that shit right now. That is, I feel like, a central hub for people's interactions with one another. All involve watching stuff at home, watching stuff with potential mates, and then talking about those things we saw on social media.
And finding
that
meaning.
is where God is born, I think. I won't talk. That's an hour-long lecture. I won't.
You mean in storytelling, Connor, right?
Yeah, like Vesta is a deceptively important god in the Greeks, and she is also the god of television because it's a flickering light that we gather around to reinforce our culture. And Vesta is an avatar of Eos, the dawn, a flickering light that gives us culture. And that is... Eos is also the Shekinah, which is referred to as the spirit moving on the waters. It's the female part of God, the breath that is the animating principle of everything. The male principle is nouns. The female principle is verbs, and that's where life occurs.
Oh,
and
wow.
that is Vesta and the internet.
That kind of links in real nicely too with the male principle is words, the female principle is images.
The female principle is wisdom. If we're going just through like Logos Sophia stuff, but yes, totally. I was getting semantic, and I apologize.
And there's a little bit of that in the bicameral left-right mind stuff too. When people say, "Oh, you got your creative side of your brain, and then you got your analytical side of your brain," that's just like a scientific recasting of the same concept.
Sure.
I like when he's saying he's saying the last prayers or whatever over the dead body. It seemed really unexpected to me and cool. The part where he's explaining all the wrongs that other people have done. Forgive us for everything we've done bad against you. Don't hold, your grievances with all of us in our heart. That was really interesting to me. Like, it seems almost like the converse of what you expect from a holy man sending a dead person off.
Explain that more to me.
I guess when I say that, I mean like a modern, like cleric, a modern holy man who's coming to do a regular funeral. It's more about we're here to celebrate, and you tell the dead body is cleansed of sins. I guess this is very underworldy. I guess to tell the dead person like, hey, we were shitty to you. Don't like get hung up on it and get stuck here over that. Just we sucked. Let it go. Move on to the next part.
I like that. I think that's interesting. Something that I've been thinking about this past week about this book versus the last book is that the last book is about self, and this book is about other.
You mean Short Sun? Short Sun's about self, and this is about other.
No, New Sun.
Oh, New Sun.
Is about self.
Yeah. What's Short Sun?
It's all Severian, and that this is all what other people think of you and how you affect others. So in that way, like rather than the funeral being about the dead person, the funeral is about what the dead person thinks of us.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. Took me kind of by surprise last night.
Yeah.
In the next paragraph there, where Silk starts hearing this sort of like cursing, this kind of like exorcism, kind of like chatter going on there. Do you think that's Chenille upset with what just happened, or is she like possessed and like spouting out these words? Because to me it almost sounded it was like the exorcism.
It suggested that she didn't understand what she was saying. It suggested. That doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, just the way it's like, it almost seems like it doesn't make any sense. But I guess at the same time, if you're really under duress, you probably just start swearing in a way that doesn't make sense. But
she's also.
She says,
I'm sure.
Oh yeah, she's high.
So she might just be high as shit. And like,
yeah.
Or speaking
Yeah. Yeah, speaking in tongues, that's kind of what the vibe I get from that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like this little part. We acknowledge the state we call... he sees Crane come up and put a stethoscope on a woman they all know is dead. And then parenthetically, Silk says, or Horn, we acknowledge the state we call death with so much reluctance, Silk thought, not for the first time. Surely it can't be natural to us. That's a really sly justification of meaning and religion to me. To say, like, we wouldn't... If meaninglessness was natural, we would not have a problem with death. It would just make sense, We'd just be like, somebody died. But we resist it. It's something, and then you start thinking about Genesis, like how did death get introduced if it's so foreign? What is its relationship to us really?
Totally.
And of course, Silk, the holy man, would say, you're not supposed to die. And there's a way you can live, that where you believe that, where you believe you're not supposed to die.
Not supposed to die is an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, sin brought it on. It wasn't the intention for you.
Yeah. Well, okay. This is an argument that I had with the Catholics when I was hanging out with the Catholics. Just because it's not how we're supposed to be doesn't mean that it's not the intention. Like the sin that brings death into the world was. This goes back to people asking, well, if God's so all powerful, why did he even make a tree that we're not supposed to eat from?
Mm-hmm.
Why would he set us up for a fall? Doesn't that make him evil? And it's like, well, no, because free will is important. In order for the whole thing to work, each person has to choose for it to work. So you have to have this option of it not working, fail, have it not work, and then come back to having it work. That was the point the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So, death is supposed to be here. We are supposed to die, and we're supposed to deal with it.
It teaches us something that's true.
Yeah.
Even if it's not what was supposed, even if it, like when humans were made, there was no thought of, and then they'll die at the end. But we do end up dying because death is part of it's a big part of everything. It has a big role in here. We can't avoid it.
Well, all of life is only part of life. Only death is all of life. Because life is complete when death happens, so now it's a whole thing. At every moment of our life, we're only experiencing a minuscule part of our life.
Wolfe would maybe have us believe that there is zero turnover between... I hope he would have us believe this. That there's zero turnover between death and birth. That, by the time you realize you're dying, you, are actually starting to be born. I feel like you could get that if you wanted to out of Eschatana Genesis.
Well, and if you look back at New Sun, Severian dies multiple times, but there's no real moment of nonsense, It becomes Severian.
Yeah, there's no Bardo.
Is there no Bardo? Do we get kind of a Bardo in Earth on the ship in the staircase?
Yeah. It's like a privileged Bardo though. He's a VIP to be able to be there. Isn't he?
What are you talking about?
When Severian switches bodies in the stairwell of the ship.
What's a bardo?
Oh, from the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
It's a place you go, your spirit goes there after every, in between death and your next reincarnation, there's a place called the Bardo.
Cool.
Yeah.
What next?
I like this one immediately after that part. The next paragraph. Under all the shrill hubbub, Silk could hear the dead woman's blood dripping from the steps to the crumbling brick pavement of the courtyard like the unsteady ticking of a broken clock. I feel like this is a really neat intersection of Agatha Christie, or even a gothic mystery, but also a weird bloody crucifix kind of religious salvation through pain and suffering image. It's got a vibe, I think is how you say that.
Yeah. This definitely has some strong Agatha Christie in this chapter and the next chapter when he deals more closely with Chenille.
Yeah,
You know, like this is
being there when the murder happens is such an Agatha Christie thing.
Yeah.
right. They
This-
hear it happen outside with a scream, and they run over, and she's holding onto the knife in her chest.
Maybe I'll listen to some Agatha Christie books from the library. That sounds really cool. I've never read her.
I used to read them when I was a kid.
Watch the Poirot movies too.
Ooh.
Orient Express, Death on the Nile, Evil Under the Sun. They're all really fun.
Detectives are so important. They play such I feel like a very important role in stories that we like. A person who's like a flawed person dedicated to solving a mystery that may not benefit them personally in any way.
Yeah.
This chapter is not only detective-like in the fact that Silk is acting like a detective, which frankly he doesn't even need to, but he is. But it's also detective-like in the way that it's written, because there's so many little details that pop up throughout this chapter where when you're reading it, you actually don't know what's going on. For example, if you're using the book on page 199, they're just putting the sheet over Orpine, right? And Silk, out of nowhere, says, "She didn't. Not forever. Not even as long as I."
Oh yeah.
I had to stop there and reread that page like 3 times, and I was like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I was so annoyed.
But later, 3 or 4 or 5 pages later, he goes back and explains what he meant in that little bit right there.
Yeah.
Right? And this is really, because an important part of a detective novel is that the detective is going to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of who? Reader, right?
Yeah.
That's important.
This is why the Benedict Cumberbatch remake of Sherlock and also the show House are bad shows.
Yeah, the
In
best
both
shows they're ahead of you.
Yeah, those shows always have some piece of information that was not available to the viewer that makes a twist at the end and becomes the real answer. Sometimes they dangle something they showed you only to be like, you idiot, you didn't know about this definition of some disease that House knows. Haha, that's how we find the killer. Shut up.
Ryan, have you seen the Neil Simon movie Murder by Death?
No, is that... tell me about this. I feel like I've read the wiki, but I definitely haven't seen it.
It's a movie in which... It's a movie that later on Clue rips off. It's pretty much the plot of Clue.
Mm-hmm.
But Truman Capote has gathered all of these detectives from fiction together. Sam Spade, which is played by Columbo, and Poirot's in there, and that's played by Peter Sellers. And he's gathered them all together in the house to say, I hate all your detectives because your stories always leave something out so I can't figure it out, and that's not fair. So figure this out, you fucks.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the movie.
Isn't it a play, too?
Simon, huh?
Isn't it a play as well?
Yeah, Neil Simon writes plays.
Ooh.
It sounds a little tongue-in-cheek.
We should put that play on.
But it's really good. It's a really good movie, and it's exactly addressing that point that you were making.
That point is very near and dear to my heart because it blows my mind that people aren't really upset when shows do that.
I don't know. I don't get upset when shows do that because I try to let go and go with the flow of the show as much as possible. I have to have a lot of cognitive dissonance with the show to not be able to like it when it's happening. I usually dislike something afterwards.
I have a freakishly low tolerance for cognitive dissonance.
Oh.
It's like
the air that I breathe.
It's like the disease where you have your skin's only as thin as paper and you can get a cut from anything.
What's that disease called?
I don't know, like fetus skin,
Fetus skin.
fetishness,
I'm sorry.
fetishness.
I'm sorry, Ryan. You've got a bad case of fetus skin.
What now?
Musk and Silk have a real weird. I mean, Musk's presence in this chapter is strange at all. Like he has like two sentences or so that he's there, but he and Silk clearly have a competitive relationship now. Where like he's holding the dagger and Silk just takes it out of his hand, like that's something you can do to a gangster like Musk, and then he says, "Oh, this is nearly new, not terribly expensive, but not cheap either." And then Musk says, "Any fool can see that," and takes the dagger back. Like Musk doesn't like that Blood has affection for this weird little priest.
Yeah.
I guess because Silk is hot and he's like, fuck.
I mean, you gotta think that must be in there.
Maybe.
I've never thought that before.
I think it is. I think that Silk doesn't think about how he's a tall, attractive man all that often, but he definitely wouldn't think about it in relationship to Musk. But from what we know of Musk would probably think about it.
Huh.
He's vicious and vain.
Huh.
Also, he's coming fresh off of a humiliation.
Right.
It probably worried about people's faith in him.
That makes more sense than thinking about how people look to me. Not that I'm saying it that has nothing to do with it. That's just alien, and I just don't. It just never occurred to me.
Yeah, I just the way that any fool can see that. If he had said anything else, I don't think I would have gone down that road. In my head, it's just the way the phrase "any fool can see that," and he snatches the dagger back.
Yeah.
Well, is he a little miffed that... Wait, what happens? So Silk takes the dagger and he's like, well, this isn't like the nicest dagger, but it's okay. So does he think he's a little like, okay, yeah, you get the nicest fucking dagger. Deal with it, So sue me. Like he's a little mad that he's getting insulted.
I think it's this moment where Silk is kind of playing detective here, and he's making this observation, and Musk makes a bigger deal out of it. Musk reveals that he's feeling a little touchy right now, and he like snatches it back, and he's like, like anyone could see that, that's not a special observation, that's not a you're not the boss here.
It's an encroachment. Silk is now trying to be useful in some other way, and that's like an encroachment. Yeah. Musk is the guy who gets stuff done for Blood. Somebody else trying to be useful is like, that's his territory. It reminds me a lot of a poem I just read called the Nibelungeniad about Siegfried and Siegfried and Roy. Yeah. Which is like what that giant German epic poem about.
Yeah.
Basically, that revolves around the idea that there's this hero who comes from another country and helps these Rhinelanders, but it causes there to be a temporary overturning of the system. The guy who's supposed to be doing that job, the normal toady of the king, is displaced. And then eventually that leads to like enmity, and that guy ends up killing Siegfried, and then it becomes this horrible thing. But it all, many men are slain, everyone dies, fortunes are sunk into the rivers, and it all happens because
you see some of that in Beowulf also.
Yeah, leaving when the roles are like transgressed momentarily by an outsider, a system begins to crumble and turn against itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, Silk is also trying to determine who may have killed her, right? Which is clearly not a priority for Blood or Musk. Their priority is just getting rid of her. You know, so when they see him being inquisitive, they're thinking, like, fuck off. Yeah. It doesn't matter who killed her. That's That's neither here nor there.
The magic power of Silk happens really explicitly here, where Silk is only thinking about what's right for the gods, and he ends up giving Blood a perfect solution to his own problem. Mm-hmm. It's like if Silk was trying to be Machiavellian, he could have come up with this idea, and there's probably not a better one. But he wasn't trying to be Machiavellian at all. He wanted the girl to have a decent burial. And then Blood sees, holy shit, yeah, then we never did anything wrong. You're brilliant. You're helping me. Blood mistakes Silk's goodness for aid to him.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I think that's the power of Silk. Silk's only ever thinking about religion, but other people are like, this guy helps me.
I don't think that's a quality of Silk. I think that's a quality of goodness.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because there's this kind of comic moment, I feel like, where Blood thinks Silk is going to rat and is like, you agree that this was a suicide, though, and Silk is doing his classic thing of I can say something that's technically true, and her hand was still on the knife when I saw her body, and Blood's like, I like that. In that case, Patera, you agree that there's no reason to report this. And then when Silk says, I certainly wouldn't want to if I was in your place, that's a hilarious punchline, but it is also this goodness, this intense goodness. He will look at anyone else's point of view and temporarily adopt it.
Oh, which is the thing I was arguing we should do before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Connor, you have a very nice, disembodied head scene frame right now.
I'm pretending that I'm at the beginning of Zardoz.
I can't get my little phone circle to go away, so your head is completely obscured by a smaller picture of your head and the phone.
Interesting.
It's artistic.
I'm wearing one Beats headphone over one ear right now, and everyone has different sort of ambient noise coming in through their microphone or whatever. It's very subtle. But it all comes in choppy and kind of stops and starts, and it kind of sounds. If anyone ever heard the band Growing, kind of like a noise band from the 2000s, it actually sounds kind of cool. It's
I really appreciate your product placement.
I really like that album, the Something of the Rainbow and the Harmony of the Light.
Yeah.
That record's really good. One side, it's like a double record. One side of it is just one beautiful chord for 20 minutes.
I thought they were underrated duo.
And nice guys, too.
I'm just glad that you told us it was a pack of Beats headphones.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Invented by Dr. Dre, right?
Yes.
He's the one who made it.
In his laboratory. That guy's been chilling out a whole lot lately. He took that headphone money and retired, huh?
I think he did pretty well for himself.
Have you heard the story of that whole thing? Monster, the guitar cable company or whatever, came up with them, and then they made this really unlucrative deal with Dr. Dre, and then Beats was basically able to take off on its own, and Monster was completely lost.
That's ironic because the monster turned out to be the other party.
That's right. We're all monsters.
Is there any way you can be louder, Mark?
Yeah, sorry. I'm sitting way back.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to be a jerk.
I am really mad at you.
Me too. It's a thing that I struggle with often.
Me being mad at you?
No, me being mad at me.
This whole chapter
I take
is...
for granted that everybody else is mad at me.
Please tell me why.
Do I sound okay? Did I mess something up by moving over here?
You're good.
Better than ever, in fact.
Oh, wow.
I feel my attention span is very short today.
Yeah, you haven't said much.
I can't concentrate. I don't know why. Maybe I need
What-
more coffee.
What's on your
I
mind?
kind of want to get more coffee too.
Nothing. It's not. I'm not distracted.
Don't say anything
I just-
interesting. I'm getting coffee.
I just can't concentrate.
My blind
Yeah.
fell.
Nothing is on my mind, and that's why I'm not talking.
Fair enough.
Oh,
It's a lot.
Last night, I sat on the couch for 3 hours just looking at my phone. I don't think I did. It was weird. I couldn't do it. I couldn't read. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't think.
I felt like that for a lot this week. But I don't know. I mean, yet I watched a pro wrestling pay-per-view last night, so I felt great.
That works.
Kenny and I
My
played
mind's
the
been
trees
taken up-
all morning yesterday.
My mind's been taken up by I just entered my true crime phase.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So my mind is always thinking about the true crime documentary I just watched last night.
What did
And
you
it's
watch?
the only way I can find comfort is trying to solve these other mysteries as they're being presented to me through Netflix documentaries.
Did you watch the Unsolved Mysteries, Connor?
Yeah.
I'm really into the Ray Rivera story personally.
Which one's that one?
It's the guy who jumped off the Belvedere.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
But yeah, I
Allison's
remember that too.
sister worked for that company and told me all about that.
Yeah, I worked at that company at the time too. I worked at Agora, and it's really strange. I guess this is another. We could talk about this some other time, but I think it's a really interesting story personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Because
seems
isn't
like
Agora kind of a cult?
Yeah, a little bit. Definitely shady. I'll tell you that. It's definitely shady. So now I think their behavior in the aftermath of his death was shady as well. Probably a suicide, but shady nonetheless.
Oh, I think it's probably the Russian mafia that runs out of the Belvedere.
Well, that's something that they didn't explore in the show. I don't know. There's a book apparently about it too that I haven't read. But remember, there used to be a place called Red Square in the Belvedere.
There still is.
It's not operating anymore though.
You get a bagel there.
I
Well,
was
yeah.
charged $40 for a shot of vodka there once.
Yeah,
Wow.
right.
Did they walk that back?
What, the shot of vodka?
Did you have to Did you really have to pay 40?
Well, so it was Sean Blue he was like, hey, come on, I'll buy you a drink at Red Square. Let's go to Red Square. And we went to Red Square, and there was some kind of 60th wedding anniversary going on in Red Square at the time. So we came in, and it was an amazing thing to watch, but they clearly hated that we were there. And Sean was like, let's get 2 shots of this horseradish vodka. And they brought the shots, and they were like, each of these shots is $40. And Sean then was like, don't worry, I'm going to pay for this, because Sean loves to pay money that he doesn't have. So, and I was like, well, I don't have $40, so go ahead. And
Wait.
that's how that, and then we quickly got out of there.
Horseradish vodka?
Yeah, it was vodka that tasted like horseradish.
Ew.
It
I would
wasn't
like-
bad.
I would like a regular
get
radish
that.
vodka. That's probably
I
what
don't think of regular radishes as having a very overpowering flavor.
that's probably what doozers drink when they get off work.
Oh, compressed.
Yeah, 'cause they were making all that shit out of radishes. Y'all don't know about doozer lore?
Not as much as you do.
Time to reboot that franchise, clearly.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Dear Lord.
It's a great. I mean, Fraggle Rock is pretty awesome because the message of it is tune out, turn off. Like, don't fucking be a part of the system. Be a hippie that lives underground, eats fucking radish buildings made by slaves. You know, basic like worker drones.
Tim Leary. It's a show about Tim Leary's idea.
I mean, it is like the very radical edge of the tip of Jim Henson's bayonet, I think.
That's why it had to be on HBO. It was the first HBO original.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it's, you know, because the Muppet movie in particular, I feel like is very aspirational. It's telling kids like, work your hardest, believe in yourself, and then one day you'll get a movie. But I think he had some level of guilt about that, and that's why Fraggle Rock had to happen. That was like, okay, most of you aren't going to be able to make a movie, and you know what? You should fucking slack off and be happy, and don't get involved with all this working shit. That's for doozers.
But that's because that's Doozer's version of making them.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, but doozers are...
Like, find your bliss and follow your bliss, and it doesn't have to be other people's bliss.
But doozers are like...
we want to be in a movie, so we made movies about being in movies, but, like, don't worry if that's not what is your bliss.
Yeah. Doozers, though, they're NPCs. They don't make a decision. They just do what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. They're everyone in the economy. But we're Fraggles. Disgusting, hairy, dirty Fraggles. Singing songs. Always singing those songs.
Gonzo's the original Fraggle.
Oh, yeah, that's his true race, huh?
Yeah, he starts out. Gonzo starts out being the cigar box Frackle.
No.
And then develops into Gonzo, and then the Fraggles come out of going back to the original Gonzo.
That really makes sense, because Gonzo's the weirdo that never fits in.
Yeah. He wants to go. He doesn't want to go to Hollywood. He wants to go to Bollywood.
I hope 10 years from now there's a dark, gritty Gonzo origin story movie, starring Joaquin Phoenix or something.
Oh my god.
Where he escapes from Fraggle Rock and joins in with the Muppets, but he's an outcast in society and
well, you have
ends up befriending chickens and stuff.
In Fraggle Rock, you have the Gorgs, which are they live above ground. They're huge, monstrous, dumb, oafy ogres, which are obsessed with how they're royalty. And I think the only
big trash pile too.
Yeah, the talking trash pile. That's the straight world of government up above the ground. Above, when you're not underground, you're up there with these Gorgs who are like, I'm the king, I'm going to jump in a pile of turds, watch me.
Yeah.
But what was going on with Henson and women? That's the question. Something weird, something bad was happening there.
Have I told you about the girl I know whose mom auditioned to make puppets with Jim Henson?
You have, but you should tell it on camera.
This lady told me that her mom, who was a great puppet maker, was auditioning to work with the Jim Henson people. And the way that worked is a whole bunch of puppet makers got in a room together and made a puppet. And Jim Henson came over to her and was talking to her about her puppet and was clearly interested. And at the end of it, he was like, hey, this is great. You totally have a place with us. But to let you know, we do everything together, including drugs and sex. And she was ultra Christian, so she turned it down.
It's cool that he was up front, That's
yeah, but it's also interesting that was an aspect, a very Children of God, Family of God, Church of the Process kind of
NXIVM.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cult that just kind of seemed to never go wrong.
Well, I feel like they kept their aspirations acceptable. They wanted a secure career in entertainment. They didn't really want anything else more than that, and that's pretty acceptable. You let someone have their orgies. What I don't understand is
know about.
Yeah. What I would think that they would have more breadth of female Muppet personalities if they were having sex all the time. I mean, it's not like they were secluded in a bro zone like creatives today. Why is it just Miss Piggy and Janice? It's so strange.
What, come on.
I mean, Sesame Street begins to redress the balance, of course, because start thinking about what it looks like.
Is Camilla only in babies? Is she just a baby?
Camilla definitely has chicks, yeah? Isn't that who's flapping around in the... Huh. I don't know.
I mean, is she only in the baby show? Muppet Baby?
Camilla? No, Camilla's in the when Gonzo has that truck full of chickens, right? Yeah. Camilla rides shotgun in the movie. Camilla's movie.
It's always been there.
She is an animal though.
I think I'm somewhere else. I think I was thinking of somewhere else.
The Muppets.
The Muppets are cool.
They are a kind of pantheon of gods.
Totally. They really are.
Yeah.
They taught me how to read. So.
Piggy is like Echidna. The shrill, overbearing Hera.
True.
Who's
Echidna?
Echidna.
Kermit.
Yeah, Kermit is Poss, who's like, he has some, he wants to keep everything running together, and these Muppets are crazy, always subverting his production. But he loves them. I guess Fozzie is terrible Tartarus.
Oh, this is why, you can do stories with Muppet characters, and you can always find a perfect casting every time. It's because they're gods. That's why you do it.
Perfect archetypes.
That's why they resonate with children from so many generations.
Yeah, but if you don't have enough women Muppets, you're going to run into problems too, though.
True.
Because you need a bunch of women for this.
Yeah, they left out. I mean, who's even the Venus in the Muppet pantheon? There's not even a Venus really.
Camilla.
Well, Venus and Hera are aspects of the same archetype.
Okay, yeah, I guess Piggy is oversexed in a Venetian way.
Like they all go back to Ishtar, who is love and death. And also the original God.
You guys know I had to move Miss Piggy one time for my job.
Whoa, the real puppet?
That's awesome.
You know what the job was? The job was go to the Smithsonian American History Museum, pick up Miss Piggy, take her a couple of blocks away to the Natural History Museum, and drop her off and wait for a couple hours, and then go pick her back up and take her back.
What a diva.
I love that.
What a diva.
She had to meet an appointment.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
To be photographed with the Hope Diamond.
That's so cool. This story just keeps getting better.
That was like 2/3 of a workday. That was like a half a workday.
That fucking rules.
Did you come in contact with the Hope Diamond?
No, I was not there. We just dropped
thank
her
your
off
lucky
at the
stars for that.
museum
That
and
thing's
picked her back
evil.
up.
Is the Hope Diamond like the trapezohedron from the play Carnotany?
All I know is that everybody who touches it comes to no good.
Do they lose their minds?
It is cursed.
They lose their life often.
Fill me in. I don't really know about this Hope Diamond.
Oh, it's the whole curse of the Hope Diamond. Anyone who owns it is cursed, and many people have died. I mean, so the legend goes. Many people have died.
But you're just a peon who's like taking it out of its case and putting it back in. You're not gonna die though.
No, but you're still going to get some bad luck, possibly.
Who died? Who died? Who'd it get?
I don't know.
So the
British
Hope Diamond is probably a pillage from somewhere important, right? I remember I read about where the Hope Diamond is from. I don't remember, but so that's the curse, is that if you try to gain from this pillage relic, then fuck you.
Yeah. Isn't it from Rhodesia?
Probably.
Rhodesia.
Something like that.
Oh my god. This meeting is going off the rails, you guys.
It's because we're so excited that fascism was defeated once and for all again by Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Again,
New
that's a
golden age.
Now we know that we're the majority and the majority rules.
There are no more minorities. There's only the majority.
Assimilation is an unequivocal good, and it should be the goal of everyone who lives in this great country.
Like the Borg.
The world.
Conformity is a virtue. There's no reason to talk about it really, because it's just what all good and right thinking people do. They act like everyone else.
Checks out. I agree. Fully agree.
And so we're overjoyed. We're overjoyed that we won. It's
We
like
did it.
it's like the Super Bowl but real.
Does the board come into Deep Space Nine at all?
Into what?
Deep Space Nine?
Not really. There's too
No.
much going on. There's a little too much going on for that.
It's like they designed the show for Jen to hate it.
It's got its own set of villains who pop up, who are pretty villainous.
Oh yeah, they're pretty cool. I like
Who are they?
Cardassia.
The Kardashians.
No, well, there's the Kardashians.
And those are the
but then
net guys?
the Jem'Hadar too.
there's a Jem'Hadar, but the real enemies are the shapeshifters.
Oh, the
Yeah, so it turns out that the
Wait,
race.
Dope, what are you doing? I
You-
just started watching this shit.
All right, I didn't. There's no spoiler.
No, it's fine. It's like,
Jesus Christ.
All right.
it's not a big deal.
Anyway.
There's no Borg, but it's like its own little corner of the Star Trek universe. You know, like it's like Bajorans and Cardassians
And Trills.
Trills.
Oh yeah, Trill.
Trills are fucking cool.
I like Trill. I'm down with the Trill.
Trills
What's
are
a
dope.
Trill?
Oh, you don't know about
Trill?
Trills?
Trill is what Dax is.
Trill is when a real hot lady has a slug inside of her, and that's
Oh,
really
okay,
her.
okay. Right.
Huge slug, and that means well, I'm not gonna say it because
As a fan of Stargate, I think of them as Goa'uld.
A go wow.
Nerd.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that Tony Soprano has for lunch.
It may well be.
Gabagool.
They're also
Oh my
little
God.
slugs that live in your belly.
You guys, I really am starting to think we should end this.
Hold on, let me just make sure I didn't
We're
underline
talking
anything
about
else
Star
good.
Trek.
You're
It's fine.
you're thinking of ending things.
Oh, there's that whole business of you got to think of Blood as a tradesman, not as this romantic criminal. He's a dude that does business. His business just happens to be outside of the law.
Yeah.
That's very interesting for us, considered we are living in a place run by criminal oligarchs.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he put Silk becomes so many people in this chapter. Then he's the artist who made the dagger, trying to figure out what is the significance. Is this belong to a person named Mouse? No, it couldn't. And it's probably not someone who's named Blood either. It's probably someone named Cat. He takes a page or two to explain definitely why it's not Mouse's or Blood's dagger. That the dagger with the big cat on it belongs to Cat.
And he's wrong.
Because it has something to do with fire, right? Fire is the key.
doesn't
It's
Orchid
It's
said
Shani-
it's someone cat. No one else. He's the one who says cat. That it's cat.
it doesn't have something to do with fire. It has something to do with the red tail, right?
the red
Chenille's are
hair.
red cat tails, so it's Chenille's
Yes.
dagger.
Right. But they don't know that yet.
Right.
He hasn't figured it out.
He's working on it.
There's a good flogging the guiltless wall moment. He takes his wrapping off and beats it on the wall.
Some good writing.
Who's in the innocent wall he thinks of while he's beating. He beats an inanimate object and takes its point of view.
He uses the advanced technology of the clapper.
Yeah.
Anyone pick up on that?
Yes.
He enters the room and goes, and the lights turn on.
Oh, when we meet Chenille, there is she is described by Orchid as having the biggest boobs in the place.
Yeah.
They put that a lot. They mention her tits all the time.
Yeah.
Chenille's
I guess also one thing that I thought I had underlined at the very beginning of this chapter is how Orchid is literally a vagina when she opens the door.
Yeah.
Everyone picked up
That-
on that.
I did not.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
dude,
did.
listen.
And I feel like that passage reminded me of Confederacy of Dunces so hard.
Ha.
Her pink peignoir gaped in sympathy, its vibrant heat leaving the bulging flesh between its parted lips a deathly white. Like, the madam of the whorehouse opens the door. That's like the second paragraph of the freaking chapter and the first appearance of her, and it could not be more vaginal. I mean, the name Orchid, too, you know? Like, there's no way you could cram more vagina into that fucking character's introduction.
Oh yeah, and the Well of Orchids is something else. From New Sun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I forgot about the Well of Orchids.
Oh, what about this cool explanation of why there aren't haunty ghosts?
Where's that?
Hyrax, for it's very near the end. Hyrax, like, Orchid's asking, like, dead people gonna come back? And, like, she's trying to find out why her first dead daughter never visits her. She's like, can they come back and see us? And Silk's like, I don't think, not by what you mean when you say see. And he's trying to explain it. He's saying when he says Hyrax forbids them from coming back. If he did not, the living would live at the direction of the dead, repeating their mistakes again and again. That seemed like a big thing to throw down there that we could probably talk about for an hour.
I got nothing to say right now.
Because you're too happy. You're so overjoyed.
That's right.
Can't contain this joy. I just need to go outside and see other people and scream and have a big joyous super spreading event.
Kiss and hug.
Right.
Super spreading.
I mean, I do miss people so much right now. I felt bad yesterday because I was so sad. I was so lonely all day long.
Oh.
It's my own fault. It's how I live life.
Do you want to play Mage tomorrow?
I do. I'm not prepared. Oh, and I'm working tomorrow. I'm not working on Tuesday.
Tuesday, then.
Yeah, I'd be into that.
Let's do it. Gary Strawberry.
Yeah, Gary Strawberry.
We're talking about Connor's role-playing game, and my character's name is Gary Strawberry.
Everybody's got good names in it.
That's the best name I've ever thought of.
Jordan's name is Maud Featherly.
Ooh, that is good.
Dave Iden's name is Dolores Claiborne.
Are we? People are talking about schedules. Does that mean we're calling this one, or?
Do you have anything else underlined you would like to talk about? I think I got all my ones that really matter. Oh, there's the weird thing about her and him talking about him going in his mom's bedroom.
Yeah.
That's pretty weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
He's like, I know you put on your mom's underwear, and he was like, what?
He's like, nah, I just looked at it. I'm sorry.
All right.
I just looked.
Mom's underwear. Everyone puts it on.
I guess, like, the thing I got out of that exchange was that she's like, oh, you've never been in a woman's bedroom. And he says once or twice because that's technically true. And he's thinking of the once being when he was just in Hyacinth's room. But then she points out, oh, but he didn't think of his mother. And she's like, well, you've been in, oh, you probably are talking about when you were in your mother's room. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was in there a lot, actually. And then we go down this weird road about her underwear. But I don't know. I guess I found the significance of that. Like, he's telling a technical truth in his mind, which actually turns out to be more true than he realizes. Even though he's trying to obscure the truth. He's trying to get out of talking about Hyacinth or being guilty for it. Ah, Silk.
Silk.
He's like going and, going
He's just
in,
like us.
He is just like us. Except I didn't go in my mom's underwear drawer.
Yeah, I don't think I did. Oh, wait.
Dads.
I'll tell you what I did do was go find a dirty book that was in their room when they weren't home sometimes and read that.
You're trying to have a dirty book.
It was called Vox, and it was like a hit. It was kind of like, I guess,
Oh, that
like
book rules.
Yeah, I think it was a sort of a minor 90s 50 Shades where it became like a very explicit book that it was like sort of okay for normal people to have because it was such a hit.
I haven't read. That guy wrote something called The Mezzanine that apparently people love that I haven't read.
I feel like I would be afraid to read it now because I just think it's very much of the time and it would be it'll seem kind of quaint and now. Vox is all.
I think it's still hot.
It's all. I guess I should look at it again. It was part of formation of my like twisted libido, so I should probably know more about it. But the book is all like. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's all transcripts of what are like fictional phone sex line conversations.
Oh, that's so 90s, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you get these people that are talking about their explicit desires, but then it kind of crosses into these sort of more like soul-searching introspection moments, and every once in a while, pretensions towards like insightful literature mixed with talk about DP and 3P.
Reach out and touch faith. It's very your own personal Jesus.
Religion and sex are strangely intertwined, and this chapter is all about that. The Mantian and the whorehouse shifting, which one and the other, the strange. They're the same thing. Look out.
Religion and sex are inexorably intertwined from the beginning.
Yeah.
And according to Tim Leary, who we mentioned with the Muppets, it's because they occupy the same circuit of the mind.
I find that very persuasive, and now I believe it. Also, Madonna.
Right, sacred hymns.
When
The
Madonna,
hybrid group.
yeah, when Madonna was awesome, she was just like mainlining that right into our veins.
When Madonna
She also like her love of Kabbalah was a failure, but still a kind of going in that direction.
I remember when that first happened, the best that anybody could explain it, I was like, what is Kabbalah? Why are they talking about this? And they're like, oh, it's like Jewish yoga.
That's so funny because it's because she just happened to be because it's just that she got into Kabbalah and Ashtanga yoga at the same time.
Yeah, that must have been it. But yeah, at least my conception
That's so funny.
of Kabbalah in like 1998 Alabama was, oh, it's just Jewish yoga. I didn't even really.
I love that.
It's funny that when Madonna
Jewish yoga is literally just eating.
and jokes,
Yeah.
really good self-effacing humor and snacks.
Yeah. All right, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I'd like that.
I think I
Yeah.
have to make more coffee and then try to get my brain to work today.
I'm going to change the litter boxes.
So the 22nd, eh?
Yeah,
Ow!
double deuce.
Hopefully, by then the election results will have been overturned twice and not just once.
4 more times.
I've been trying to keep away from knowing too much, but I did look a little bit when I woke up this morning, and I did see something where it's like, the way they were talking about it was like the papers are prepared to call a prediction of saying Biden is president-elect.
Right.
Like, they're leaving it
Yeah.
open for a twist here, and this media, you don't think they want a twist? You think they'd be like, no, we'd prefer no twist.
Yeah.
They want a twist worse than anything, and I think that they might give it to us. They could be like,
They
remember,
might.
get all excited for a couple days so it can be really impactful when we bringing the hammer down and say, no, the Supreme Court makes Trump God.
The twist is going to be that the elections didn't matter and the war is what matters now.
Ooh.
Right.
Against who? Syria? Iran?
No, against us.
Oh, against us.
Yeah.
The Wolfpack.
Well,
You think the Wolfpack is going to be like the ISIS for this new administration?
Oh, Jesus. I do.
I'm not the one who's saying it.
Oh,
I am not saying.
I don't mean we're
not
going to
saying.
do ISIS-y things. I just mean that we're going to play the role of like this strange, obfuscated group
Scapegoat.
of bad
We'll be
people,
like,
yeah, who
Ajay.
justify military expenditure.
The scapegoat.
Dallas.
We're going to need drones that are much better than the drones we have because life's not perfect, obviously. And the only reason is because our drones kind of suck.
Who here has a drone?
I mean, my taxes that they take out of my check I get from the school go to pay for some of the ones that Uncle Sam has.
Kenny and I were talking about how stupid it is, or like just whatever, how the Democrats suck or whatever. And Kenny was just like, the Democrats are gonna paint. He's like, the Democrats are gonna paint the LGBTQ flag on all the drone bombers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I follow all the awesome weapons manufacturers on Twitter. I mean, I hope that you guys have all noticed how my fashion today is especially patriotic. Got my Lockheed Martin jacket on.
I've never known anyone who put so much effort into looking stupid as you.
Brown and root hat. I like to wear patriotic fashions. But I bring it up because the weapons manufacturers' Twitters are lit. They are so good. They are so far beyond Black Mirror themselves now with their PR. Like, there are literally, like, on the regular tweets that are, like, a picture of a very, ethnically energizing looking young person who's got the Raytheon polo shirt on and is like, STEM education is really important to me for opportunities of the future. That's why I've joined Raytheon's especially diverse team. And we're going to make the world a better place with weapons.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. Those people, I mean, the people that are doing PR for those who make war are very, very well aware of how to do it right now. And they're pretty fucking good. It's Verhoeven level.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, what is that out of all of the possible futures? No, it's not that Verhoeven, like, predicted anything. He was just like, oh, this is how gross America is. I'm going to make a movie about it to make it seem really weird. But now it's just like, yeah, this is regular. I'm glad that's
super on the nose. Super on the nose.
He needs to give us another one. We clearly didn't learn our lesson from Starship Troopers. I feel like he should make another one right now.
Or RoboCop.
Yeah. RoboCop is incredible because people will take it exactly the opposite way.
Yeah.
I mean, I as a child had a RoboCop toy, and I believe I was allowed to have that toy because it was understood like vaguely that RoboCop was a super cop.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The best cop ever.
Oh, Ed 209 is real.
Well,
Okay, guys, I'm gonna go make coffee.
All right, Jen. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Later, bro.
2 weeks. Another
Nice
Verhoeven.
basket. Nice basket.